Hello class, Turtle here, bringing you the only tier list guide you will ever need in your life. I have been cooking, got my notes at the ready. Tomorrow version 1.4 will be coming out, so just wanted to bring some good luck. I know it's not St. Patrick's Day, but got my clover tie on to guarantee you guys a 50-50 win on the next 6-star that you pull. Guaranteed, I hope. And please, if you enjoy content like this, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Whaling is getting kind of expensive. I'm going broke, and I would love to hit that content creator status so I can afford to, pull more P5s like 37. Stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and go over all 61 units that we have that will be released between now through version 1.4. I'm going to start with the lowest tier first, basically characters that I believe are playable, that you can clear content with. So let's begin with Mondlicht. So Mondlicht is a 4-star DPS mineral unit who doesn't really offer much utility besides a defense shred, if I'm not mistaken. I think all her incantations and ultimates do damage. And yes, with her insights, she does shred reality defense, so you could play her as a DPS, and actually there's not many mineral DPSs besides Eternity and Kaalaa Baunaa, so if you want a mineral DPS, Mondlicht might fill that role. Moving onwards to the Fool. So the Fool is actually decent as a defensive unit because he can taunt, he can offer corrode, which is basically, you can think of him as a damage over time applier with his corrode ability, dealing Genesis damage for 2 rounds. I think both his counter and his ultimate corrodes, yes, that's right. And his insights offer some additional utility. He actually is quite versatile. The only reason he's not ranked higher is just because he's a 3-star unit, and so he's going to be super squishy. But as you can tell, he is a character you can clear content with. Moving on to Cristallo. So Cristallo, she is more of a defensive unit because she applies sturdiness and increases reality and mental defense to your party members for 2 rounds. And her ultimate offers some interesting utility in the form of Nasty Wound, which reduces the amount of HP that the enemy heals, and it also deals radiation therapy, which I think is unique to her, basically damage taken reduction minus 15%. And when a round ends, takes Genesis damage based on the caster's attack. So I think that's pretty interesting, not bad. I think there's a content creator, I forget who actually filmed a video this past week doing a Cristallo showcase. So not a bad unit. Moving on to TTT. So TTT is an interesting one because I think the main thing is her ultimate. Her ultimate's actually pretty decent. Basically, the ultimate disconcert makes it so that the enemy cannot gain Moxie for two rounds. So if you were to pair her up with, say, like Melania or some other unit that can strip Moxie off the enemy, then you can just make sure that the enemy doesn't cast their ultimate for 2 rounds. And then her Insight's Concealment kind of offers some defensive utility for TTT herself, where she's able to dodge non-ultimate attacks for 2 rounds. So that's TTT for you. Moving on to Oliver Fogg. So Oliver Fogg, he basically provides some survivability for your team by applying a stack of sturdiness to mitigate damage, as well as increasing the reality and mental defense of your party for 2 rounds. His ultimate just bypasses some defenses, which is interesting. And then just some additional utility involving shields, where when a round ends, loses HP and gains a shield, which lasts until the start of the next round. I'm actually not sure if that's good or not. That actually sounds kind of bad, but yeah, that's Oliver Fogg for you. Moving on to Pavia. Pavia is an interesting one. I'm trying to find the part. I think it was his ultimate. Okay, he self-heals. Every time an ally dies, damage dealt, crit rate, crit resist, and damage taken. Yeah, so it incentivizes, basically, if you have an ally who dies, Pavia triggers additional abilities, but I don't think he triggers anything if he dies. So, I don't know. I think you can clear content with him. And then moving on to Newbabel. So Nick Bottom, I think, is defensive. Yeah, he boosts reality and mental defense. Now, notably, his multipliers for increasing reality and mental defense is higher. I think this is the highest where it's plus 30% and minus 30%. Yeah, these are pretty high numbers. Oh, and you know what's interesting about him is that you can have his ultimate target one of your units to purify them. Basically, removes all stats down and negative status, kind of like what 6 is capable of doing. Grants them a shield and also grants them a Summer Dream status for 3 rounds. Now, Summer Dream status makes them immune to stats down, negative status, and damage taken reduction, and grants a Moxie when the round starts. Actually, I think I made a mistake. You should probably have Nick Bottom in D tier, but you won't be able to get that effect until he gets his ultimate off. But that's actually a pretty good effect. So my mistake. I think he should actually be in D tier, but with so many units, it was hard to keep track of them all. And then Onion. So Onion, I think that it's her ultimate that offers value. Yeah, not that great. Grants, 2 stacks of sturdiness to all your enemies. When you get to endgame content like Limbo, I don't think applying sturdiness is going to cut it. I mean, she does have the ability to grant to taunt incoming attacks to her, but I think if you want that, you're better off going with Miss Newbabel. So that's why Onion is, you can clear content with her. And then finally, rounding things off with the Suicide Squad, Door and Miss Radio. So the thing about Door is that he needs to die in order to provide value. And actually, his ultimate will speed things up for you. I think he just flat out loses all his HP and grants Moxie +2, a shield, and Inspire to the other 2 units. I don't know if it helps the unit that will take Door's place. I believe it is no. And Inspire, you begin around with +1 Moxie. I don't really encourage this kind of, unless you're doing like a no pool kind of run. I don't see how Door's ultimate will compensate for losing an entire character, because I remember when the game first started and I was watching Vulcan's playthrough and he was trying to clear some ambulism, and he was trying to do the Door strat where he would basically sacrifice his Door in order to buff all his units to clear some ambulism stage 10. And I think what ended up happening was, as he was trying to get enough Moxie to get his Door to ultimate, another one of his units died, and then of course Door died, and then I think his entire team died. So I don't know if Door's a good unit. I think it discouraged all his viewers from playing Door. But I mean, if you want to try him, I think it would make for excellent content if you're a content creator or just really like Door. I think he's a pretty comical character. Yeah, when the caster dies, +1 Moxie. Yeah, so... Oh, and plus, if you have a character die, mind you will have one less incantation slot, because you start off with 7 incantation slots, and when a character dies, you lose 1 and you go down to 6. So that's the other thing that you have to keep in mind. And then for Miss Radio,
my good friend,
her ultimate, yeah, she loses all HP, and I would say actually Miss Radio is worse than Door, because all she does is she makes all enemy units -4 Moxie and inflicts disconcert where they cannot gain Moxie. But that's just not good enough, right? Like, that's not worth losing a whole ass character for. So anyways, that's going to be the characters I believe I think you can clear content with. Alright, so moving on to the D tiers, basically the playable characters. We're going to start with Miss Moissan. Alright, so Miss Moissan, she's a defensive unit if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she grants a shield to all allies for 2 rounds. Oh, and she inflicts freeze, and I believe she's the only character who can inflict freeze. Basically, it makes it so that target cannot act, but it's dispelled after taking mental damage. So you want to pair her up with a reality team. Besides that, I don't think she offers much other utility. Yeah, she doesn't. Alright, moving on to Erick. So Erick is interesting. She's actually a lot better than I thought. her ultimate is pretty good. She is able to dispel stats up, positive status, and counters from a single target, and she also disarms. She's the only other character who can disarm units besides Sonetto. And disarm basically makes it so they can't cast attack incantations, which is pretty decent. And then when an enemy dies, damage dealt plus 10%. So basically, as enemies die, she passively applies a damage increase to all your units. This is what I think sets her apart from all the characters in the tier below, because I think she offers some offensive utility plus some defensive utility, which I think is quite good. All right, so that is Erick. Moving on to for Mesmer Jr. So this one, I almost put her down a tier because initially I thought she was a more defensive support with Stabilize and +1 or plus mental defense buff to everyone. But I think her ultimate offers some utility. She's able to paralyze all enemies, and basically when the enemy has 2 stacks of paralyze, it turns into daze, which basically makes it so they can't act. I should emphasize it's a stack of paralyze to all enemies and an additional stack to paralyze. So essentially what happens is you end up dazing your main target and you prep the other 2 targets for dazing if you get another paralyzed stack off. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, at the end of every 2 rounds, inflicts 1 stack of stabilize on the ally. Okay, stabilize 1. Okay, so basically the only way you can paralyze is by... Oh, and her level 2 even dispels, so that's actually some utility there. I forgot about that. Yeah, but the thing is, so you basically need to cast her ultimate again if you want to turn the other paralyzes into daze. She's a decent unit. And then next we have Poltergeist. So Poltergeist surprised me as well with her ultimate. So her ultimate taunts the enemies, and then she also dodges all non-ultimate attacks. And is there anything else she does? She's able to shred mental defense there. Actually, I should probably move her a tier down. Yeah, so I would move her a tier down and Nick bottom to a tier up. It's my mistake there. Moving on to Clatter. Clatter, where are you? Darley Clatter. Okay, so this one I learned more about him from the tutorial. His ultimate makes it so that your entire party gets +2 Moxie and 3 rounds of damage bonus. This is actually a pretty good ultimate. And it's enough to actually put him over the top into the D tier. I don't think his incantations provide any utility. And then if the caster's HP goes below 50% after being attacked, +3 Moxie. So it's kind of an additional way to get his ultimate up, which I think is pretty cool. Alright, and then moving on to Sputnik. So Sputnik surprised me. She's actually decent. When the caster's attacked, -1 Moxie to the attacker. I think that's kind of an interesting counter. Ooh, and her ultimate's actually pretty good. So it's a single target ultimate that hits, deals mental damage, and also disarms and silences. So it makes them unable to cast their attack incantations and unable to buff themselves or cast debuffs and that sort of thing. Pretty nice. And then when the caster is encounter, provides her some sustainability. Not bad. Okay, moving on to the to Alien T. Alien T surprised me as well. So Alien T, he kind of does what Newbabel does, where he's able to taunt and significantly reduce the damage that he takes by 40%. And his ultimate is actually pretty broken. I believe it's the exact same ultimate as Sputnik. So that's very interesting, where he's able to disarm and silence. He's basically like the reality version of Sputnik, if you will, where he's able to disarm and silence. And then his insights, let me see. When the caster enters battle, enters taunt, that's kind of nice, and gains a shield for 2 rounds. So right off the bat, he is taunting, and so this is why I think it's really surprising. I almost wish that Miss Newbabel had this capability. All right, and then finally, for the D tier, we have John Titor. So John Titor, I believe Chimi Fune, one of my content creator friends, did a showcase of. Not great, but not terrible either. I think that if this heal was all allies, he would instantly jump up 2 tiers, but unfortunately he only heals himself. I don't know why. And then his ultimate dispels all enemies and purifies all allies. So this is actually better than what Pickles and Tooth Fairy are capable of doing, because each one of those units are able to do one side of the coin. And then all allies gain a shield for 3 rounds additionally. So even though he only heals himself, but he does, when he casts his ultimate, provide some survivability for 3 whole rounds with the shielding. And the multiplier is pretty high, times 200%. And after the caster acts, he gains some HP. So yeah, he's really like a self-sustaining tanking unit, which is pretty cool. So that pretty much wraps things up for the bottom 2 tiers. I'm going to go pee real quick, and then I will be back to continue the review of all 61 characters. Stay tuned. Alright, moving on to the C tier, the average units. We're going to start with Bunny, who really impressed me. Not only is she a decent DPS, but her ultimate is one of the best in the game. Well, actually, that might be capping a little bit, but still, purifying all allies and then granting HP to them. So she's a DPS that purifies all allies and heals. That's pretty cool. I can't think of any other DPS who does that. And then inflicts Gracious Host on all enemies for 2 rounds when entering battle. Crit resist rate and crit defense minus 25%. I think this is a sleeper DPS, not to mention she is very, very easy on the eyes, so I think that definitely worthy of C tier. That's Bunny for you. Moving on to Eagle. Now, Eagle is a character that I think more people are familiar with. Where are you? Oh my god, he disappeared. Or she disappeared. Where's Eagle? Oh my god, she disappeared from the map. Oh, it's because I leveled her. Right? Okay, sorry guys. Let's maintain composure here. Okay, so yeah, has leech rate, interesting with 1 incantation if they're in a stats down, very easy to enable. And her ultimate enjoys crit rate plus 100%. Excess crit rate converted to crit damage. This is basically what we wish Lilya had. Yeah, pretty insane. So, what else can Eagle do? Inflicts Sense Weakness. When the caster dies, dispelled Sense Weakness status. So Sense Weakness, ooh, shreds Reality Defense and shreds Crit Defense. Pretty good, pretty solid unit there. That's Eagle for you. Bette. Let's see here, Bette, where are you? Okay, so she surprised me as well, because yes, she is more of a defensive unit if you look at her buff. However, her ultimate is, I like the Empower Incantation too. So yes, she grants a target ally a shield for 2 rounds, but Empower Incantation 2, where when a round begins, 2 random incantations gains +1 star. So the cool thing about Bette is what you can do is you cast her ultimate, you target your damage dealer, that way 2 of their incantations get leveled up for the next 2 rounds. I can't think of any other ultimate that is capable of doing this. And then after casting an ultimate, Moxie +1 for the ally with the lowest Moxie. So it's like not only is she helping your damage dealer, but you are also granting Moxie to another ally who needs a little more help with getting their ultimate up. So I think a very good unit. Okay, moving on to Click. So let's see, Click, where are you? It's a 5-star, right? Yep.
If possible,
okay, so the thing about Click is that he has some utility, but it requires you leveling up his incantations for them, which is not the spot where you want to be if you want your DPS to do most of the actions, but he does offer some utility, as you can see, being able to cast Blind, which damage bonus minus 30% when attacking one target. And then the ultimate Basically, it deals mental damage to all enemies and then applies a lens cap to your other two allies besides Click for 1 round. When the caster is attacked by reality damage, damage reduced by 50%. So that's a very beefy shield, and it's not even a shield, it's a lens cap. It's unique to Click. However, defensive units are not where you want to be for endgame content. You really want to be bringing the enemy's HP down to 0 as much as possible. But he offers a decent amount of utility that I think earns him in the average unit spot. I should mention too that, it's really difficult to compare Click with someone like Bette or Eagle or Bunny because, yes, theoretically, Click's kit is worse than their kit. However, keep in mind that Click is a 5-star and those other characters are 4 and 3-star units, so the stats differential is going to play a role as well. So I cannot bring Click all the way to F tier if his stats are noticeably higher than the 2-star and 3-star units. So I just want to offer that as food for thought. Moving on to Rabies. So Rabies is the other poison applicator besides Kanjira, Sotheby, and Jessica that we have. If I can just find him. Okay, yeah, so let me show you the part where he inflicts poison. Oh, I think it's his insight that does it. Yeah, after the caster attacks, the target suffers 1 round of poison. What I love about Rabies is that, and he might actually be a better poison applicator than Kanjira, because every single one of his attacks deals poison. His incantations, and I would presume his ultimate as well. So I think that's quite good. And so if you really, if you just pulled for Jessica, and you somehow didn't get Kanjira, then you got Rabies to help with the poison application as a support. So, and then finally we have Apple. So Apple, I think, is a character that everyone will have and who everyone will have some understanding of how he works. I think I leveled him up a bit. Yeah, so the thing about him is that his level 2, or which one was it? Okay, so his ultimate grants HP to an ally with the lowest HP. Oh, actually, I think I raised him up a little too much. He's... Sorry, I got his incantation mixed up with Regulus, because the Apple incantations. Okay, for some reason I thought his incantations did more. Yeah, but it just does flat damage. Well, oh, it increases HP for the ally with the lowest HP. Okay, so he's kind of like a healer. And oh, okay, so I think he's worthy of average tier. I forgot he had 2 different ways to heal the ally with the lowest HP. But that's the thing, though, he's really topping off HP. He's not necessarily healing your character to the fullest unless your other characters are pretty healthy. So given how few healers we have, I think Apple is still worthy of being an average unit. So now we're moving on to above average units. We're going to start things off with Matilda. So the thing about Matilda as a DPS is that her damage is actually decent. I mean, if you ignore the fact that she doesn't have poor trays currently, she's actually still okay. She's able to apply confusion at level 2 or higher with that incantation, and her ultimate enjoys some crit rate. And then her insights, basically the more criteria is met, the more crit rate she has, and the tankier she gets. So that's Matilda, not a terrible DPS by any stretch. Moving on to X. So X is above average because he has many tools in his toolbox, which allows him to help you out in different situations. A level 2 coffee or tea incantation will dispel all counters. A level 2 anode and cathode will dispel all stats up and positive statuses from the target. And then his ultimate's kind of nice. It reduces all Moxie on all enemies by 2, which is it's useful. And then here it talks about the different benefits that you get if you dispel different things. So if you dispel a stats up or positive status on an enemy, you will silence that enemy, which means they can't buff, debuff, heal, or counter for the next round. And when he dispels counters, he silences them for 2 rounds. And then after casting an ultimate, inflicts disconcert status on the target, and disconcert, I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember what disconcert does, and it's weird that they don't talk about it. But yeah, basically X is a decent support. Okay, moving on to Horrorpedia. So Horrorpedia, where are you? I think I worked on him a little bit. Okay, so the thing about him is that based on certain criteria, he will deal additional damage. He also has the ability to dispel stats up and positive statuses if you want, so that's kind of cool. He has that tool in his toolbox. And his ultimate inflicts scared status on all targets for 2 rounds. Scared basically increases mental damage taken by 25%, so that would make Horrorpedia good on a mental team paired up with, say, like Melania or some other mental DPS. And then his insights, when casting rank 2 logic dictates or above, additionally dispels counter. So this just makes you dispel more things. And then when casting a rank 2 incantation or above, increases damage dealt by 20%. So it's a way to boost his damage output. I do have some viewers who have stated in the past that Horrorpedia has decent damage. I cannot vouch for that or refute that because I don't have my Horrorpedia fully built. However, it's entirely possible that as a 5-star support unit, he may have some sub-DPS capabilities. Moving on to Leilani. I don't like her as a character, but I like her, I can respect her kit. So basically she's a character who's able to do additional damage. She's actually more of a DPS when I look at it now, so I should move her to the left actually, or to one side alongside Matilda. Ultimate grants +2 Moxie to all allies. That's actually really insanely good. Yeah, that might actually drop Matilda down a tier. That sets the bar pretty high. When the caster enters battle, Moxie +1 for all allies, and additionally whoa, okay. So I think that sounds like an A tier unit. What do you guys think? That is actually pretty good. I mean, she's a 3-star unit, so maybe her damage might not be there, but that is a heck of a lot of utility for a DPS unit. Oh, and she's meant to be support as well. I guess this is more of a supportive role, but gosh, that is really good. That is really, really good. That actually kind of puts Tennant to shame if I go over her next. So Tennant, who is our 5-star unit, where is she? I think I leveled her up a little bit. I'm going to sort by rarity. It's getting hard to find these characters. There we go. Here's Tennant. So Tennant is more of a defensive unit. That's why I don't really like her as much. But, oh, I'm sorry. She has a balance of defense and offensive capabilities where the ultimate inflicts a diamond bullet status for 2 rounds on the target, where each reality attack that they take does increase damage to them. And I think with her insights, it allows for her, it basically fuels her kit. So when she enters battle, immediately casts Bouquet of Galaxy. I think that's the sturdiness application, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the shield application. So, let's see. I believe she's casting this on herself. Oh no, everyone. Okay, so everyone enters battle with the shield. And oh, that's actually decent. Okay, yeah. I didn't realize it was everyone. Okay, and then if the caster starts the round with below 50% HP, immediately casts a Bouquet of Galaxy. So that kind of fuels her survivability. So actually Tennant's not bad. That's actually not bad. I underestimated her. Alright, and then moving on to Twin Sleep. Twin Sleep really surprised me. She's actually insane. Okay.
Are you here for Louisa or Louisa?
So she is an offensive support, guys, who has a broken ultimate. So she has a mass debuff that inflicts a stack of weakness on all enemies and shreds their crit defense by a sizable amount for 2 rounds. But that's probably because I have P5. For when the caster attacks, damage bonus minus 25%. Oh, okay, it's more of a, I don't know, I guess it's more of a defensive and offensive. Oh, and then inflicts Nightmare on the enemy for 1 round, making them unable to act. Dispels the effect after taking any attack. So you kind of you kind of have to be strategic with her. Nightmare is good in that you don't have to worry about a reality or mental team setup with Twin Sleep. However, you just have to make sure that whichever target you want to basically disable with Nightmare, you've got to cast this ultimate last. And I think the insights provided something. Every other round enters Arcane Stamp for 1 round. Duration of inflicted statuses +1. So there's going to be times where you can time it right, where the Nightmare lasts for 2 rounds, as well as other inflicted statuses. So there's some crazy combos that you can explore where Twin Sleep is paired up with, I don't know, say like, there's so many ways you can do this. Like, you can extend like poison, you can extend like paralyze or whatever. Yeah, Twin Sleep, there's a lot of different combinations. Twin Sleep you can slot into any team. Very unique kit. I like her a lot, or them a lot. And then La Source. So La Source is a really good healer. It's a pity that her stats are a bit low due to her being a 3-star. However, she is quite good. And we, I think, are going to get a skin for her soon. So, you know, she's your bread and butter healer, where she's able to heal all your units. And then her ultimate shreds, basically depletes the target's Moxie entirely, -5 Moxie, which is pretty good for a healer, right? And then her Insight 1, when the caster enters battle, inflicts You Wish status on the enemy with the highest attack for 3 rounds. Yeah, so basically the enemy with the highest attack when you enter battle for 3 rounds, their damage output is decreased and their damage taken, they take more damage as well. So it softens up most likely the boss and also makes them take more damage. That's actually pretty good. I think this is one of the few units that is capable of offering value just by being present. And 3 rounds is a long time. I mean, nowadays when Limbo, where Limbo can be cleared in like 6-7 rounds with, and fully built teams, I think having someone like the Source do that, it really helps. Having a healer who can apply value without needing to cast an incantation. So that wraps it up for the B and C tiers. I'm going to go get a sip of water, and I will be right back. Alright guys, moving on to the A tier, starting off with our DPS Blonney. She's our crit DPS.
Really have something important to say.
Alright, so for Blonney, she has the capability of inflicting confusion for 1 round with her level 2 debuff. I believe this is a standard attack that enjoys crit rate and crit damage, so I love that she's able to buff herself in multiple ways. And her ultimate allows her to hit all enemies, and this enjoys an additional crit rate of 30%. From a free-to-play perspective, I think this is fantastic because, Blonney is able to provide so many buffs to her without needing any additional help from Psycubes and that sort of thing, although having a Psycube like Thunderous Applause allows her to go over the top to crit more consistently. And then with her insights, when casting an ultimate, crit rate and crit damage increase by 20%. So she has basically like 3 ways to buff up her crit rate and crit damage, which is quite good. And at Insight 3, that crit rate and crit damage increase goes even higher. I think the only thing that holds Blonney back is that she doesn't have crit rate overflow. Otherwise, I think she could potentially go higher if she had that capability, kind of like Regulus. Although Regulus is on a whole nother level, and we'll get to her momentarily. Alright, moving on to Diggers. So Diggers is a character who has a whole toolbox of debuffs. One debuff, it basically shreds reality and mental defense for 2 rounds, which is quite good. And then his other debuff inflicts weakness, which makes it so that they deal less damage to you for their next 2 attacks. And the ultimate inflicts 1 round of Nightmare, which basically makes it so that they cannot act so long as they are not hit by any subsequent attacks after you cast this ultimate. Additionally, if the enemy is in stats down, negative status, and that sort of thing, which they most definitely will if you're playing Diggers properly, then this Nightmare will last 2 turns, not 1 turn. So I think some people were saying that Diggers was okay, calling him mid, but he's actually quite broken, I think. I think the only issue is that there's just so many other good plant supports that I think Diggers has kind of fallen off in that regard. But the one saving grace is that he is a mental support, which means that theoretically you could pair him with Druvis in a Circle of Life plant team. And then his insights provide additional utility, where when he enters battle, he gains a shield for 3 rounds, which I think is kind of cool. So it improves his survivability, which allows you basically to tank hits better and hopefully spares you from having to cast a healing incantation. And then when entering battle, gives a shield to all other allies for 3 rounds. Even better, so it really incentivizes you to have an I3 Diggers. I actually forgot about that last part. And so Diggers does improve survivability for the duration of how long the shields can last, which is 3 rounds. Moving onwards to Kanjira. So during my previous tier list video, there were 3 people who commented that I put Kanjira too low, and I have to agree. Kanjira, she is actually an excellent sub DPS because she is an applier of poison, as you can see with Heipunji. Even a level 1 incantation inflicts poison on a target for 2 rounds. I kind of wish that this was a multi-target attack. I think this is where Sotheby really is on another level, in addition to being able to heal. But what is interesting about Heipunji is that depending on which status she is in, she has 3 different modes. Depending on which mode she is in, like for instance, if she is in Emerald Fortune status, inflicts an additional stack of poison for an additional round. And then before I go over the different modes, her ultimate is a mass attack that, let me see, if the caster is in Agate Fortune status, deals additional damage. So the thing about Kanjira is that she sequentially alternates between 3 different modes, kind of like how Ann and Lee alternates between 2 different modes. With Kanjira, at the start of the round, performs a divination and acquires each one of these statuses for every round in sequence. So it starts off with Emerald Fortune, transitioning to Pearl Fortune the following round, then Agate Fortune the round after that. So these rounds will enable different things. One of them will allow you to do an extra stack of poison. This last one will improve the ultimate damage. And the middle one, the Pearl Fortune, I think I skipped that. Yeah, so if in Pearl Fortune, applies a stack of confusion. So she does a little bit of everything. What I like about her is that she, in addition to enabling the poison archetype, well, you need a Jessica for a poison archetype, but she is actually a decent support for Jessica, even applying confusion, which is something that Jessica, I think, will appreciate, especially given that you might need Tooth Fairy for your other Limbo team. So I think this is actually pretty cool. So Kanjira, not bad, I think worthy of A tier. Moving on to Necrologist, I think this is I think everyone can agree with this, that Necrologist is worthy of A tier. She has one of the most unique kits in the game. She dispels all stats up from a target, which is pretty cool. She, can bypass some defenses with her penetration rate, but her ultimate, I think, is really what shines because it's a blend of both offensive and defensive capabilities. The offensive capability, if you have her at P5, she grants 50% damage dealt to all your allies for 3 rounds. Holy, okay, wow. And if you don't have her at P5, it's okay. She still boosts the damage output by 30 or 40%. And then grants a stack of prayer. So prayer makes it so that your other allies don't die after taking lethal damage, and instead heals their HP. So Necrologist actually is a fantastic unit if you need a support who can help with survivability. Let's say your characters are just not well built or not built enough, and they're having a difficult time tanking attacks, especially in the early stages of the game when you're starting a new account. So having someone like Necrologist be able to provide a party-wide damage boost as well as improve their survivability, I think you couldn't ask for more. But there is more that Necrologist provides when the caster enters battle, enters prayer. So this is the one time that she applies the prayer status to herself. And when a prayer status on your side is dispelled, HP plus. So she heals herself when her party members die and revive. So I think this makes her Necrologist really cool. I don't think there's any other character like her. And she's kind of like a Pickles hybrid with like a flavor of her own, which I really like. Alright, moving on to Satsuki. So Satsuki is basically Druvis's partner in crime. What's really cool about, if I can find her, these sunglasses are making it hard to find the characters. Oh, yeah, that's right. I did actually build her. She's really good, guys. When you pair her up with Druvis, basically Druvis and Satsuki create the Petrify core. Petrify is basically an ability. Let me show you. And she has decent DPS, by the way. Okay, so inflicts a stack of rigidity. When there are 2 stacks of rigidity, turns into Petrify. And extends the duration of existing Petrify for 1 round. I love the final clause there because being able to keep them petrified for multiple turns is really good. And Petrify, I'll get to that. But let's just talk about rigidity first. So ultimate inflicts 2 stacks of rigidity. When there are 2 stacks, turns into Petrify. So this basically petrifies the enemy of your choice. And what does Petrify do? That's a good question. So Petrify makes it so that the enemy cannot act. It dispels when they take reality damage. So what you ideally want to do is pair Satsuki up with Druvis as well as another unit who is a mental unit. Unfortunately, I think we are kind of limited on the number of mental healers we have. I'm trying to think of who that would be. Yeah, but I think most of the time, because usually you'll want to pair this team up with like Sotheby or some other premium healer. Actually, you might not even need a healer because Druvis at I3 has Circle of Life. So scratch that. So just basically partner Satsuki and Druvis up with a mental support such as Diggers or Pickles or something like that. And yeah, then you can just keep them basically petrify lock your enemies. And so very, very fun unit to play. Moving on to Sonetto, a character who everyone has access to and who is a fantastic unit. One of the best, actually. One of the best supports that we've got that is accessible for all players. Her buff is able to increase the damage output and increase the damage and mitigate the damage taken by all your allies, and it increases Sonetto's penetration rate, allowing Sonetto to have some sub-DPS capabilities. And then this other incantation, Disarm, makes it so that they cannot cast their attack incantations for a round. That is actually really insane, these two right off the bat. And ultimate, when Sonetto is in stats up, this attack enjoys additional penetration rate, which bypasses enemy defenses and deals additional damage. Sonetto is really good. I think maybe on the cusp of S tier. She's not in S tier just because the S tier units are just broken, but she's up there. She's really up there. And then, you know, when she's in stats up, she deals additional damage. And, you know, with her I3, it even makes it so that she crits, she becomes tankier on the crit side. So that is Sonetto. Moving on to Baby Blue. So Baby Blue is a character that I think people are starting to underestimate. I don't know why. Yeah, I think maybe just because there's too many good star units, and with 37 on the horizon, I can see how Baby Blue is falling off, but she is by no means a bad unit. She's fantastic. She is able to buff all your units, or debuff, I'm sorry, making it so that they deal less damage and take more damage. And then her level 2 Tea Party debuff incentivizes you to have a mental team because she's able to, at level 2 or higher, shred mental defense. And then her ultimate casts Nightmare, just like Diggers, which, as we mentioned before, is a status that makes it so that they cannot attack, so long as you don't attack them after you cast Nightmare on them. But you have to keep in mind, though, so this comes with an asterisk because Nightmare will only be inflicted if they are in a stats down. So you have to make sure you debuff them But the cool thing is that it is a mass attack, so you could theoretically nightmare the entire enemy party if they all have a stats debuff, which is really good. I don't think even Druvis can do that, being able to disable an entire party like that. That's really good. And her insight provides additional utility where when she takes mental damage, she's able to take that damage better. And then when she's hit by mental damage, it gives her 1 stack of Wonderland Visitor, where she takes less damage. Yeah, so it helps with her survivability, which is always welcome, especially with more difficult content. All right, so now we go on to our secret 5-star Zima. Zima, the most underestimated. I underestimated him too, so I'm guilty of that as well. Yeah, so Zima is a 4-star unit who's a secret 5-star. He is able to increase your, increase your damage output and healing output for 2 rounds. His debuff is able to silence the enemy for a round, making them cannot buff, debuff, heal, or counter. And then his ultimate seals the enemy for 2 rounds. I'm sorry, I almost capped there on the main target for 2 rounds, but it's a mass attack. Mental, interesting, it's a plant mental unit. Ooh, okay. Maybe a good partner for petrified teams, if you want to cook a little bit. Seal makes it so they can't cast their ultimates for 2 turns. That's something that I think the only one who can top that is Bkornblume. But that's not all. When he attacks, if the caster's HP, if he is above 50% HP, has additional penetration rate, below 50% HP, damage mitigation a little bit, able to tank hits better. Yeah, so just such a good unit. All of his entire kit is so useful. And I think for that reason, he is worthy of A tier. And then finally, going on to our A tier healer, we have Dikke, who is a character who every person should have from the 7-day login when you start the game. So the thing about Dikke is that she is a healer / sub DPS, kind of like Sotheby, where she heals a decent amount and heals more if you're in a pickle. And then damage, is able to do additional Genesis damage at level 2 or higher incantation. Ultimate, this is cool, purifies. Oh, it's only for the caster, but still, okay, I didn't realize that. So she's able to purify herself and enter immunity for 1 round, makes her immune. So this is basically good if you want a healer who is reliable, who you can count on to survive in battle. Because usually battles end when the healer dies. And she's a mental healer, which is kind of cool. That unlocks some options for you, because we don't have that many mental units. And then on top of that, when she attacks, if the caster's HP is higher than the target's attack plus 15%, I'm going to be honest, I don't know half the time whether this triggers or not, but it's a welcome addition, helps with her damage output. And then when the caster attacks, if the caster's HP is below the target's leech rate. Oh, okay, I got it. So she'll either do more damage or she'll top off her HP. So that's really good. It's really, really good. All right, so now moving on to the S tier. So this is where we are entering the meta-defining units, and there's a lot of them. Let's start with Eternity. She is actually a unit who helped me unlock Limbo when all my characters were dying. Like, I don't have footage of this because I wasn't content creating when the game released, but if I had captured footage, like literally you saw me scrape on the skin of my teeth. Guys, I actually unlocked Limbo before the first Limbo reset. And in order to accomplish this, you only had 5 days to do so. I remember on day 4 of global release, I survived on Eternity with less than 100 HP to clear Somnambulism stage 10 to unlock Limbo. Eternity is quite good, and her damage gets even better the longer the battle goes. Unfortunately, she's fallen off a bit because Nasty Wound is not exactly the most useful thing in the world. Like decreasing the amount the enemy heals is not going to be game breaking, and her ultimate deals damage to herself, which offers no utility to herself. But her ultimate does allow her to have some survivability, and this is where you have those solo eternity clears. If you need a DPS who will help you get through any content, even if all your allies are dying, she's a unit who is fantastic to have on in your lineup. And she also has some paladin-like abilities where she's at Insight 1, immune to bleed, corrode, poison, and then each round she gains a stack of Blood of Longevity, where her damage output as well as damage recovery increases by 3% up to 5 times. So she, after 5 turns, will have a maximum of 15% increased damage and 15% damage recovery. What I like to do with Eternity is equip her with the Psi Cube Hopscotch in order to make it so that her incantations hit harder. And this will make the damage numbers more impressive. And then just reviewing I3 real quick, when she has, let me see, Enhance, transforms to Blood of Immortality. Oh, okay, this is pretty cool. So actually, I'm mistaken. At I3, it enhances her Blood of Longevity to make it so she can, by turn 5, have a 25% damage boost and 25% damage heal, and also be immune to stats down in addition to other things. So for people who say that Eternity's damage is not good, that's actually not true. Eternity is able to deal significant damage, and you will hit round 5, round 6 on most endgame content like Limbo and raids that will come out later. So let me just double check something here. I think we're good. Okay, so moving on to Centurion, who a lot of people were re-rolling for at the start of the game. She is a fantastic beast DPS, one of the few who you can comfortably say has both multi-target and single-target capabilities. I'm going to take this call. I'll be right back. Hey, Roxana. I was, but I can stop. What's up?
I am so sorry. I actually needed a favor from you. I wanted to confirm.
I need to pick up my nephew in an hour. And actually, I need to babysit him, too. Yeah, so...
Are you excited?
I am really excited, yes. But what is the favor? If it's a quick one, I can probably do it.
Yes, it is. Because it's where I actually had a food poisoning last night. So I stayed home today. But I find myself needing like a Gatorade or vitamin water just to rehydrate. William went back to work, so I could really use a ride to 7-Eleven just to grab a couple things if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, we can do that right now. Okay. All right. I'll see you in a little bit. I'm sorry you're feeling terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. Gosh. Sorry, guys. I'm back. My housemate got food poisoning last night, so we went to take her to get some electrolytes and some medicine that she needed. Anyways, picking up where I left off for Centurion, she, like I mentioned before, is one of the few DPSs that I can confidently say is both multi-target and single-target. The way her kit works is that she is able to hit really hard with single-target attacks, as well as multi-target attacks that, when you have the multi-target attack at level 2 or higher, is able to grant 1 Moxie to herself to accelerate her path to gaining 5 Moxie to either cast her ultimate early or to take advantage of a really cool part of her kit, where a lot of her attacks scale off of the amount of Moxie she has. And as you notice with the Victorious General, the more Moxie she has, the greater the multiplier for that. And her Insight 1 also grants a multiplier for each Moxie owned up to 30%, because 6 times 5 Moxie is 30%. When she loses Moxie, she gains HP as well. So this is great because if, say, her Moxie gets stolen by an enemy, which more enemies do nowadays, or if she casts her ultimate, which of course depletes all her Moxie, she's able to heal back some HP. It's not as much as Eternity, but it is a good amount of HP. And her ultimate, in addition to dealing reality damage to all enemies, applies a stack of weakness on all enemies, where they will deal less damage to you for their next attack. So I think Centurion is a really powerful unit where if you equip her with a the Hopscotch Psycube, her damage output gets pretty insane, whether you want to go the incantation spamming route or the traditional accelerating the ultimate and getting the ultimates off and just attacking as much as possible. So that's why Centurion is in S tier. And then next we have Lilya. Now Lilya used to be a tier lower, but now that 37 is out, I almost said Voyager, my god. Now that 37 is coming out tomorrow, I have to put Lilya up a level. It's more like this, I can't put Lilya down a level because she is better than the other units. So let's go over Lilya's kit because she was one of our first follow-up DPSs that we had. So basically, you know, her mass attack is pretty traditional. And then the single target attack, this is what allows her to do a follow-up attack if she crits. So you want to make sure that her crit rate is up as high as possible, as close to 100% as possible, because if you miss out on this follow-up attack, not only does her damage drop off, but her niche as a follow-up attacker dramatically drops off. And then her attack, when she scores a critical, she gains back some life. But I wish that this, if she crits, then she gets a follow-up attack off. I wish they would change her kit. It doesn't look like they will, but yeah, I wish they had that. When the caster casts an ultimate crit rate plus 20%, so that helps out. Psycube's basic crit rate bonus plus 100%. So this is a little deceptive. It's not that she gains 100% crit rate, it's that whatever the bonus is from the Psycube, you double that. So in this case with Thunderous Applause, instead of 16%, you get 32% crit rate. I was super confused because I thought it brought her crit rate to 100%, but it's not that broken, which is unfortunate. And if you're curious, when I have my Lilya on the crit resonance build, I have her 57 plus 17.2%, which achieves 75%, which adding on the 75% to the Insight 1 is 95% plus the 10%. So she has over 100% crit rate effectively. Alright, so that is Lilya. Moving on to A Knight. Okay, so A Knight is a character who will get better when one of the future Psycubes release, I believe in version 1.5, which allows him to have greater damage multipliers. And then with A Knight, the way he works is that basically his kit revolves around spamming his ultimates and fulfilling different criteria to spam his ultimates more and more. Basically with his single target, his mass attack, if you have it level 2 or higher, he grants a Moxie for himself. And then for his single target attack, whenever he defeats an enemy with this, he gains a Moxie as well. And then his ultimate is a mass attack that if any enemies are defeated, all allies gain a stack of Rousing Morale, where your party members have the ability to deal an extra 50% damage on their next attack. And Rousing Morale is a very powerful stack that normally you don't get unless it's like a stage buff or with an upcoming support ESOL in version 1.7. And then for the rest of his kit, he has different ways to increase his damage output, like for every HP lost by the target, damage dealt plus 10%, and then for every X amount of HP lost by the enemy, increased penetration rate. So he's just like a true blue DPS. Very good unit, can't really take advantage of any Afflatus weakness just because we typically don't have intellect or spirit enemies, but still a solid all-around unit. Okay, so that was A Knight. Moving on to Charlie, our secret 6-star. Now, for the 5 stars, I would say that it's very reasonable to get P3 or higher, which is how I'm ranking these 5 stars. I assume they have P3. Probably should have clarified that before. But even if you don't have Charlie at P3, I think it is still worth building her, just because her damage output is pretty decent even at P0. And eventually you will get a P3 Charlie. You will. And I would recommend the Hopscotch, which allows her to hit harder with her incantations. Basically, her incantations incentivize you to have stats up, which you most certainly should. I think pairing her up with someone like Anne and Lee would make for additional damage output. And Tempest to Thee, this is where if her HP is below a certain amount, then she deals more mental damage. And her ultimate is really good. It dispels stats up, positive status, and counters on all enemies, and also deals a high amount of mental damage. And her insights, when the caster starts the round with HP below 50%, damage taken minus 20%, and crit defense plus 20%. So this helps with Charlie's survivability because typically she's pretty squishy. And then when the caster starts the round with HP above 50%, damage dealt increase for 1 round. So it kind of incentivizes you to have her HP topped off. It's kind of interesting because you don't want Charlie's HP to be too high, but you don't want it to be too low either. I think the sweet spot is between 50 to 80% HP in order to maximize her damage output. And the reason why she's ranked so high is because her damage multipliers are insane. She's able to dispel, and she's able to dish out more damage than any other star DPS that we have at the present time. Okay, moving on to Sweetheart. So this might be a little controversial, but I think she is worthy of S tier Sweetheart. She might be the most underrated DPS that we have, and I think a lot of free-to-plays can agree with this. Sweetheart is a secret 6-star in the sense that her kit allows her to deal additional damage, basically incentivizing you to debuff the enemies, which allows her to deal even more damage. But I think what sets her apart from other DPSs is just the most broken ultimate that you can have in a DPS. Just the ability to not only daze the enemy for 1 round, making them unable to act, just without any criteria, but additionally, just to shred the target's reality and mental defense for 3 whole ass rounds. I think that is extremely broken and not to be underestimated. Not to mention with the Insight 1, when she is attacked, the attacker gets inflicted with the enchanted status for 2 rounds. The enchanted status basically makes it so that if they try to hit Sweetheart again, their damage dealt will be decreased for the next 2 attacks. Yeah, I'm assuming these stacks are consumed. It actually doesn't clarify here. And then if the attacker is of the opposite gender, inflicts 1 stack of enchanted. Okay, yeah. And then her crit rate increases, and then when the caster attacks, inflicts 1 stack of enchanted. So once again, making the enemy deal less damage to her, which improves her survivability. Every bit helps, right? Not the best insight in the world, but I feel like nowadays when you're trying to do really fast clears like I am, being able to need to heal less is always welcome. Alright, and then moving on to the S tier support. So first we've got Druvis. Now Druvis I would have ranked higher, except we have these really broken bosses that are immune to control now. It's been a recurrence for the past 2 months, and it's incredibly annoying because I think Druvis's kit is so much fun. Druvis, basically she has 2 ways to petrify the enemy. One way is with her single target attack at level 2 or higher, in which so long as you don't accidentally dispel it with a following reality damage attack, they will not be able to act. So she can petrify either with her level 2 Wind in the Woods or with her ultimate, where in this case the targeting matters, where it's a mass attack but the enemy you target will be the one petrified. So she has 2 ways to petrify. Her mass attack doesn't do anything besides enjoy a penetration rate, basically bypassing some defenses. It actually hits decently hard, which is nice, but her insights are also very good. Kind of puts her over the top. When she is in stats up, her damage output increases by 20%, which incentivizes you to pair her up with someone like Annie and Lee. When the caster enters battle, all plant allies enter Circle of Life. And so basically with Druvis, you may have heard of the Druvis Circle of Life team, where basically you don't need to heal just by Druvis being on the field with her I3. Anytime your party members who are plant units hit the enemy with some sort of damage attack, some 10% of that is returned in the form of HP to top off your party members' HP. It's very good, and especially when you reach the end game where you have Resonance 10, level 60, max level Psi Cube, max level character. This is where Circle of Life really shines, and you don't need a heal, essentially. Or you don't need to cast a healing incantation. So Druvis is quite good, even if her Petrify is not online, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And then Voyager, she has fallen off because, once again, the annoying enemies who cannot who are basically immune to control. I really don't like that mechanic. It's really lazy game design, but it's the way Blue Hawk wants to design the game, so we just have to deal, right? So Voyager, she, despite not, even if she is against enemies who have control immunity, she still has an entirety of her kit, the other half of her kit, that allows her to have some damage output in the form of this one right here. Her counter, one of the best counters in the game, where she is able to I just realized I completely left off a character. Yeah, I accidentally left off Miss Newbabel. My apologies. Let me go over Voyager first and then add Miss Newbabel. She should be on here as well. So Voyager, she mitigates damage with her Stack of Sturdiness, as well as Interstellar Blessing, which allows you to counter with Genesis damage. So this is really useful against enemies who deal a lot of attacks. And then Galaxy of the Strings, this attack is quite good. It inflicts -2 Moxie on the main target, and if they are in confusion status, this ultimate hits even harder. And the multiplier is actually pretty decent. Confusion is something that she's able to apply on her own with a level 2 or higher Starlight Sonata, but if you pair Voyager up with Tooth Fairy, which you most of the time will, then that is another way that you can get this ultimate damage bonus off. And then her insights do so much. So Insight 1, after performing 3 actions, enters Refrain. Refrain is a status in which, if there are enemies after the caster takes action, inflicts 1 round of silence on all enemies. And the cool thing is that with Insight 3, you can add Seal to the mix. And this is where Voyager gets very good, because Voyager is able to seal all enemies' ultimates after performing 3 actions and entering Refrain. But I have to say, though, we're entering a stage where 90% of the time you want to be casting your DPSs, incantations, and ultimates. It's very rare for your healers to take any action, and actually we're getting to a point where you don't want your supports to be casting more than 1 incantation per round if you can help it. So I think hitting that 3 action threshold on Voyager is kind of a tall ask, and this kind of puts her at risk of being dropped down to the A tier, but I will not, just because she has so much to her kit that provides value. I'm going to go ahead and go over Miss Newbabel next. I think she really should be in either the S tier or the A tier. I'm going to bump her up to the S tier now that 37 is coming out, and this might be a hot take, but hear me out, okay? Don't cancel me yet. So Miss Newbabel, I believe, also belongs to the A tier, because she is probably the one unit who is able to generate more than 1 Eureka, generate more than 1 Eureka for 37 without consuming that many actions. Let me elaborate. So the way 37's kit works, and I'll get to her next, but the way 37's kit works is that she can generate Eureka for her follow-up attacks a number of different ways, or 2 different ways. One is either to have 37 do an attack, or to have another ally do a follow-up attack. And the thing is that all our follow-up attackers, whether it be Kaalaa Baunaa, Lilya, Kaalaa Baunaa, Lilya, those 2 other follow-up attackers that we've got, I don't think I'm missing anyone, you can only do it once, right? The ultimate, you can only do the ultimate once, so that's 1, and then it has 1 follow-up attack, so that generates 1 Eureka. With Lilya, when she crits, 1 follow-up attack, 1 Eureka. But with Miss Newbabel, it is a bit different, because she is able to generate as many Eurekas as the enemy attacks. And this is noteworthy for 2 reasons, because we are entering a stage in the game where every action counts, right? What I mean by that is that if you want to maximize your damage output, if you want to fast clear Limbo, fast clear Raves for the triple S ranking, you need to be able to do more things in fewer actions. And so for this reason, if I just read the ultimate real quick, it's a self counter, enters taunt, so she draws in aggro from all enemies, and enters fanged partner status, gains control immunity and riposte. When attacked, deals reality damage. It's a really puny multiplier, and reality defense Genesis damage, so bypasses enemy defenses. This lasts for 2 rounds. So we all know what taunt is. Fang partner, immune to control, riposts when the caster is attacked. The riposte is regarded as one extra action. So if the enemy, after you cast her ultimate, decides to hit you 4 or 5 times, right, then that is 4 or 5 counterattacks that Miss Newbabel activates, and then your 37 will generate 4 to 5 Eurekas. And as soon as you hit the 5 Eurekas will be consumed to do a 37 follow-up attack. When 37 releases, I will do a 37 and Miss Newbabel showcase, since not many content creators are doing that right now. So hopefully I'll be able to prove my point live, or at least in the form of a video when the patch drops next tomorrow. So just trust me on this one. I think Miss Newbabel might be a bit underrated. And then she is a shielder, of course, so the shielding mechanic isn't the greatest thing in the world. The shields last 2 turns. I wish it would just stay forever until the shields are down, but it is what it is. And then her attack just it provides Genesis damage. What's cool about this old idea one, which I don't think people talk about early, is that when old idea is level 2 or higher, she generates 1 extra Moxie, which allows her to get to her ultimate faster. And I think this is kind of the problem with Miss Newbabel. Her ultimate, I think if she had more ways to generate Moxie and get the ultimate off sooner, I think she would be really, really good with 37. But not just 37, any unit in general, but because she's kind of like a battery charger that needs a little bit of winding to get going. So Miss Newbabel is not as great as we would want her to be, but she does have more to her kit. With Insight 1, when the caster is attacked, when she's attacked, gives the caster 1 stack of Guardian Instinct, which increases her tankiness. And then Insight 2, damage taken, more damage mitigation. And then Insight 3, after gaining a total of 15 Guardian Instincts, enters Loyal Partner status. And what is Loyal Partner status? She has Reality Defense of 25% and is also immune to Moxie reduction, which is really nice, because when you're trying to get to the ultimate, the last thing you want is for your Moxie to be stolen. So every bit helps there. Controversial take, but I do think that she is worthy of S tier now that 37 is out. And then next we have 37, who I don't have yet. I'm waiting for her. But 37, basically the way she works is that she is able to generate Eureka in 2 different ways, either by taking action or by having an ally do a follow-up attack. She has a buff, like I think her Insight 2 increases her crit rate, and then basically she has a single target and multi-target attack that deals Genesis damage, both of them, and her ultimate also deals Genesis damage. But I think the main part of her kit really is just being able to do follow-up attacks whenever she consumes Eureka stacks. And that's really the bread and butter of her kit. And that's why there's so much conversation about the next hot follow-up attacker like Joe, who will be released in version 1.6. I think I keep thinking Voyager for some reason. They're both blue-haired waifus, okay? 37, I think she is worthy of S tier because she, when you put her on the right team, is able to enable an entire archetype that deals decent damage. And of course it gets better and better the more portraits you have, because at portrait 3, well actually let's not talk about portraits because I'm only talking about P0 units. I do believe that 37 as a P0 unit is worthy of the S tier. I think she has stiff competition with other star supports such as Regulus, but she is I would say that she is certainly a contender for the Star Afflatus slot. And then finally, our secret 6-star healer, Balloon Party. I think Balloon Party is such an amazing unit that is very resource friendly, and she was actually a big reason why I was able to unlock somnambulism, because without her I don't think I would have during day 4 of global release. So Balloon Party, what makes her so good is that she's extremely tanky for 1, she heals a lot, number 2, and she has the ability to fire back with Genesis damage in the form of counters. So, having a level 2 or higher healing incantation allows you to counter as well as gain 1 party balloon, which is the Genesis damage that she fires back on the enemy. Unfortunately with her, her pinata attack is not that great. It does generate party balloons, which allows you to deal Genesis damage, but generally speaking, this is not an attack that you want to do unless you are trying to get to the ultimate faster. The ultimate is great because it allows Balloon Party to have a second way to heal while dealing damage as well. And it's really cool because you're mitigating damage and you're also doing damage and you're topping off the ally with the lowest HP, which really I think synergizes with the Inquisitive Deer side cube, which also I think tops off the HP of the ally with the lowest health. So she has incredible synergy with her own side cube, not to mention with her own side cube when she casts a debuff. Well, actually she doesn't synergize with that, never mind. I'm thinking of Sotheby. Okay, and then going over her insights, when the round begins, gains 1 party balloon that triggers up to 3 times. This just helps a little bit with her damage output, and then Insight 2 helps with her healing done, and then Insight 3, the party balloon acquired when a round begins becomes permanent. So whenever Balloon Party gets hit, she will fire back with some counter damage. Balloon Party as a whole is just a really solid healer, probably the 4th best healer in the game, but a very good one at that. So that kind of covers it for the S tier characters. Now moving on to the double S tier characters, we're going into meta warping characters now, who may fall off in the future, but for now they are king or queen. Let's start off with the DPSs. We'll begin with Kaalaa Baunaa. Kaalaa Baunaa was a character that I think a lot of people skipped because Joe was announced, which kind of sucks, but it's okay. I think Kaalaa Baunaa is going to be a fantastic unit that will not be replaced entirely, maybe, because she is a mental DPS, and we don't have that many mental DPSs that do follow-up attacks or have the ability to hit hard on both the multi-target and single-target side. What's awesome about Kaalaa Baunaa is that she has self-sustainability in the form of her multi-target attack. That's this one here that grants leech rate, as well as her single target attack, which bypasses enemy defenses. And then her ultimate does basically mental damage attack. Well, her entire kit does mental damage. She gains extra stacks of full moon. I have her at P3, so you'll gain 2 full moon with her. And then grants incantation might, basically, yeah, plus 6% each. Yeah, so the full moons are what grants the incantation, grants incantation might, makes your subsequent incantations hit harder. And if we go over her planets, basically she has 3 different planets. She has Mars, Saturn, and full moon. So Saturn is the divination that bypasses the enemy defenses with penetration. Mars is the one that does the leech rate. Full moon is the one that increases incantation might. And I believe that so the full moon incantation might plus 12%. But the thing is that when you cast the ultimate, and if full moons is the maximum number of, or is the highest number of planets that she's holding when she casts her ultimate, then she will get empower incantation instead, in which when the round begins, 2 random incantations gain +1. So that's really good because it further increases her DPS. I think that this full moon clause, where she casts her ultimate with full moon being the highest, I don't think that's so easy to enable unless you have multiple portraits for her. But yeah, Kaalaa Baunaa is a fantastic unit who is a very good user of Luxurious Leisure. Moving on to Jessica, who enables the entire poison archetype. So Jessica is really good because she hits hard on both the multi-target and single-target side. It really incentivizes you to have poison stacks or some sort of status down on the enemies, which you will have on a poison team. So like the multi-target will, have increased damage. The single-target will have increased damage. And then the ultimate is able to inflict poison on all enemies for 2 turns and inflict Genesis, reality damage and Genesis damage. At the end of... Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. It's explaining what poison does. Sorry, I was capping there. Poison does Genesis damage, that's what I meant to say, and that was illustrating the multiplier. The multiplier of the poison changes depending on how many portraits you have on Jessica, and the same applies for actually Sotheby. I know this because I got P5 Sotheby recently after losing another 50-50, and yeah, her poison, the Genesis multiplier for her poison stacks is 50% at P5 Sotheby. So, okay, and then moving on to her insight. So when attacking an enemy afflicted by poison, she deals an additional 20%, and at the start of battle and once every 3 rounds, inflicts poison on all enemies. So I think when people say that Jessica can function on her own, that's correct. I would agree with you. However, if you have a Sotheby as well, it allows you to reliably activate all parts of not only Jessica's kit, but as well as her optimal Psi Cube, which is this one right here, if I digress for a second. Her best in slot Psi Cube, if you're running a poison team, is going to be Blasphemer of the Night, in which it not only allows her incantations to hit harder, but when the carrier attacks, if the target has 2 or more negative statuses, you get an additional 15% damage dealt, which is kind of broken actually. It really takes Jessica's damage output to the next level. And then I just wanted to round things off with Insight 3, where after attacking enemies not inflicted with poison, inflicts poison for 2 rounds. So it's just another way to ensure that basically your enemies are going to have poison damage on them. And then moving on to Melania, I think that Melania, even despite that one cheapskate boss that's immune to control and doesn't need Moxie to cast ultimates, I think Melania is still worthy of double S tier, because Melania for all other bosses is really, really good. I think it's certainly a meta warping team, because in addition to having decent damage that gets better and better the more ultimates she does, she's able to remove Moxie, which is basically the currency that we use to get our ultimates off. So with Silent Takedown, it's a single target mental... Oh, and she's a mental damage dealer, by the way. That's also another plus. So when she's under Thief Master status, steals 1 Moxie. So typically when you do Silent Takedown, you want at least level 2 or higher in order to remove 1 Moxie from the enemy, because you will not have Thief Master status until you cast your ultimate. So I would recommend casting this at level 2 or higher if possible. And then the multi-target damage, it provides some leech rate, which is pretty cool. I love that a lot of the beast DPSs like Centurion and Melania are able to leech the opponent. It's quite nice. I think flavor-wise, it complements Beast quite nicely. And under Thief Master status, she gains 1 Moxie and casts and grants additional leech rate. So whenever I cast Melania's ultimate and get into Thief Master status, usually I will follow it up with Clockwork Rats to ensure that both of my incantations are leeching, are generating Moxie for Melania. And then the ultimate is a single target high damage ultimate that applies a stack of Thief Master to Melania. And Thief Master allows Melania's next incantation to be enhanced. So that's in the case of Silent Takedown, you're going to steal a Moxie from the enemy, and with Clockwork Rats, you're going to gain a Moxie. So I would really, as you play Melania more and more, you will pay attention to the nuances of this. I think I made the mistake of thinking I would steal the enemy's Moxie with Clockwork Rats, but it's really the Silent Takedown that steals an additional Moxie. So, okay, I kind of backtrack on what I said. Depends on the scenario. After you cast the ultimate to have a Thief Master stack, if the enemy is about to cast their ultimate, do Silent Takedown. If the enemy is not going to do an ultimate, then do the Clockwork Rats. Okay, and then for the ultimate, after the caster casts an ultimate, gains Fixed Plan. Fixed Plan is what allows Melania to take you over the top and deal tons of damage. Because with Fixed Plan, every time she casts her ultimate power increases by 12%. And at I3 she gains an additional stack of Fixed Plan, so you'll gain 2 stacks of Fixed Plan per ultimate, so you will get stackable up to 6 times. So you will get 6 stacks of Fixed Plan in 3 turns if you have an I3 Melania for a maximum of 72% ultimate power increase, which is nuts. And if you combine that with Luxurious Leisure, which will be added to the event shop tomorrow, this is her, without a shadow of a doubt, her best in slot psi cube. It makes her ultimate might hit hard. It increases her ultimate might by a lot, and then after the carrier casts a single target ultimate, damage dealt increased by X amount, stackable up to 3 times. So Melania's damage gets pretty crazy with her ultimates. Okay, now going over Bkornblume. So Bkornblume is a secret 6-star, and the reason for that is because of her entire kit. Her entire kit is useful. So, prying ears, being able to shred reality defense and increase the damage they take for 2 rounds. And then her multi-target attack being able to deal additional damage if they are under stats down, which they will be with Bkornblume. And then her ultimate hitting really hard, but not only that, sealing the enemy, that one target for 3 rounds, making it so they can't cast their ultimate. I think Bkornblume's ultimate was what allowed me to unlock Limbo back in the day on day 4 of global release. But not only that, she hits really hard. And I think back then I was trying to pull for everyone, and I ended up with a P5 Bkornblume, and I was doing like 800% reality damage. She became my DPS essentially, and my Eternity was helping with the tanking. So yeah, just really incredible unit. And then her insights are also, they help with survivability. When the enemy is stats down, you deal more damage to that enemy, and then when the caster is attacked by the enemy and stats down, she takes less damage. So it's really nice. Just her kit is so well rounded, and with her receiving one of the first skins in the game, I think the very first skin in the game, I can tell Blue Puck really likes her, and I like her too. She's really good. Moving on to my most favorite character in this game, Pickles. Pickles is one of our 2 true blue action point generous supports. He's action point friendly because of his clarified topic status, which I should probably talk about first. So whenever Pickles does not take an action, he receives a stack of clarified topic. And every time a stack of clarified topic is triggered, he gains 1 moxie. And actually, consuming a clarified topic not only will trigger the +1 moxie to Pickles, but it will also trigger additional effects depending on which incantation you use or whether you cast his ultimate. So his Insight 3 allows him to cast a turn 2 ultimate, because he will gain 2 stacks of clarified topic. So what you will do is at the start of the round, you move his incantation 1 for 1 moxie, and then cast 2 more incantations for 2 more moxie, and then you trigger 2 stacks of clarified topic for the last 2 moxie for 5 moxie in order to get the ultimate off next round. And his ultimate is one of the best in the game, where in addition to doing single target damage, he increases the damage output for all allies for 2 rounds. And actually, you can extend that to a 3rd round if he has a clarified topic stack. And so it's quite good. I love running him with action-hungry characters such as Melania and Kaalaa Baunaa. It just feels so nice to be able to just start off right off the bat with some incantations with your DPS, and then next turn you have 3 stacks of clarified topic to get the ultimate up turn 3 and have the damage bonus applied for 3 rounds. It's really quite incredible, and he's a very universal unit. But it's not just that though. He's also able to, when he's under clarified topic, deals additional damage, but his multi-target attack when you have it at level 2 or higher is also able to dispel stats up and positive statuses and counters on those 2 enemies. You can guarantee it for the target of your choice, and then the second target is kind of random, but this is really good because we are entering a stage where in Limbo, enemies are having more cheapskate buffs that really enhance their damage output or their tankiness, and so being able to dispel this with Pickles while also improving the damage output of all your units for multiple rounds puts Pickles in double S tier. Now moving on to Regulus. Regulus is our other true blue action point generous support. And just watching the time here. So what makes Regulus so good is that, she's able to... Actually, let's talk about her Restless Heart first. This is what allows her to not only be action point generous, but also supplements her damage output. So with Restless Heart, it increases her crit rate by 50%, and then excess crit rate is converted to crit damage, and cancels after scoring a critical. So with Restless Heart, it allows Regulus to go over the top and be able to crit basically 100% of the time, while also being able to incentivize you to have additional crit rate to get that crit damage conversion. And if we go over her kit here, her ultimate does mental damage to all enemies and also casts a round of Riot and Roll to all allies. Basically, Riot and Roll makes it so that your party dodges all non-ultimate attacks. And you have to be careful because the second sentence says dispels the effect after the caster takes action. So long as Regulus does Sleepless Rave and doesn't do anything else, your party will be able to dodge all non-ultimate attacks. So just keep that in mind. Her incantations are actually not bad because when she scores a critical with the level 2 challenge of the eyes, she's able to reduce 1 Moxie. That's something that I don't think about sometimes, and it just happens, and it's pretty cool. And then, of course, her single target attack, pretty vanilla there. And that is her kit. So, with Regulus being action point friendly, as well as being the perfect partner for Charlie, as well as providing some defensive utility, a very unique one at that, and a very potent one at that, I think puts definitely Regulus in double S tier. Moving on to An Lee, who was on the cusp of triple S tier. I almost put her there, but then I saw how broken the other two were, and I calmed down a little bit. So An Lee is really, really good. Her entire kit is useful. Just starting off with her buffs, which has both offensive and defensive capabilities, being able to increase the damage output of your party, as well as mitigating damage from the enemies. And then being able to, at level 3, being able to daze the enemy, making them unable to act. This is especially powerful against bosses who are about to cast their ultimate and do some crazy things. But not only that, reaching a level 3 incantation, while normally is pretty hard to do, is fairly easy to do with An Lee because she has the ability to empower incantation, which is something I want to talk about next. So her ultimate, I think, is what sets her apart from all other units besides perhaps Kaalaa Baunaa and 6, where she enters the Empower Incantation state for 2 rounds. When a round begins, a random incantation gains +1. Basically, the incantation levels up. And this is really powerful because she's able to level up her own incantations, whether it is leveling up her buff so that her buffs are stronger, or being able to get you closer and closer to a level 3 Taoist rune to daze the enemy. And what makes Empower Incantation so broken is that normally to level up an incantation you would need to fuse your incantations. So it's kind of like gaining an extra incantation, but it also saves you an action. So it's really good. So her Insight 1 is very unique, and I love it. So when a round begins, An Lee alternates between break time and exorcism time statuses. So when she enters exorcism's time status, the caster's rightmost incantation is increased by 1. So this is what allows you to sometimes level up your incantation twice, from a level 1 Taoist rune to a level 3 Taoist rune to daze the enemy. And then Insight 3 enhances break time. Okay, yeah, so when she's under break time, damage reduction, and then under exorcism time, damage increase. And this just applies, I believe, for herself, but it makes it so that An Lee is a sub DPS that has a ton of utility and has great survivability. So that is An Lee for you. Moving on to Shemaine, one of our newest characters. Shemaine is a character who a lot of people skipped, And I think part of the reason why is because we just have such broken units coming up. But Shemaine is a very powerful unit. He has the Spirit Medium debuff, which increases the damage taken by the enemy, as well as shreds their reality and mental defense, which is a very flexible debuff. He also has the ability to Apprentice's Dance, where at level 2 or higher, he's able to grant himself 1 stack of Nature's Blessing. And Nature's Blessing is kind of the bread and butter of Shemaine's kit. You can kind of think of Shemaine as either a self-sustaining battery, where he's kind of like the support version of A Knight, where he ramps up his own Moxie in the form of Nature's Blessing. And you can also play him semi-AP generously, because you can play him as more of like a support role as opposed to a sub-DPS role. Nature's Blessing, what is it? So after casting the ultimate, spends up to 5 stacks of the status, and you spend all the stacks of less than 5, and gains an equal amount of Moxie. So what this means is that after he casts his ultimate, he will consume up to 5 stacks of Nature's Blessing that will be converted into Moxie for him the following turn. This actually, in combination with I3, makes it so that with I1, makes it so that he will have 5 Nature's Blessing at the minimum in order to have his ultimate up again the following round. For each stats down on the target, the attack enjoys damage dealt plus 8%, up to a maximum of 24%. So this is why you want to kind of time it so that Shemaine casts his ultimate or any incantation, well, especially his ultimate, when the enemy is under stats down, 3 stats down. That way he gets the maximum of the 24% damage boost. And when he enters battle, gains 5 stacks of Nature's Blessing, which is what allows him to get back-to-back ultimates. And Insight 3 is what allows Shemaine to be AP friendly if you want him to be, because at the start of every 2 rounds, he gains 1 stack of Nature's Blessing. So it's kind of a way to allow him to charge up for multiple, kind of like saving the nuts for the winter, right? Being able to cast back-to-back ultimates when you're ready to. What does his ultimate do? So his ultimate, I think, is quite interesting because it is a mass attack that you want to actually pay attention with the targeting, because whichever is the main target will receive additional damage. But not only that, he enjoys a crit rate of 20% if you have him P0, and any excess crit rate is converted to crit damage. And this clause actually won't really apply unless you have him at least P1 or 2. Let me see. Basically, that clause won't apply to you. Yeah, unless you have him P2. Alright, so we're almost done here, guys. Moving on to Sotheby. So Sotheby, I brought her up a tier because I think after playing Poison Teams more, I realized that she is really good. Because I think that we don't really have another sub-DPS unit that can heal as well. I think we only have 2 others that are, I think, like 4 or 5 star units that are capable of doing this. But Sotheby, she is such a fantastic, she's basically the best poison applicator for Jessica, and she's a healer as well. And when you get to the late stage of the game where your characters are all developed and they're tanky, healing is not an issue. As a matter of fact, you'll probably cast at most maybe 1 to 3 healing incantations per battle. So for this reason, having Sotheby there to just consistently cast poison debuffs and then heal when you're in a pickle is quite good. It basically it frees up a whole slot, right? Like when you look at all the archetypes coming up, such as follow up Eureka archetypes with Joe and 37, or burn archetypes like Spathadia and Isolde, neither of those archetypes have heal built into them, but Sotheby and Jessica as a dual comp does, which frees you up to add another support instead of adding another healer, like the other 2 archetypes need to. So for this reason, I think this is very deserving of double S tier, and her heals are quite good. They're preloaded, they don't activate right away, but they heal for 2 rounds, so it's kind of like investing, right? You cast an incantation, you make an investment for the future, and so long as you don't die at that turn, okay, I need to wrap this up. So, so long as you don't die this upcoming round, then you're golden. You're going to top off your HP with decent heals for the next 2 rounds. Ultimate, yeah, it activates all poison stacks. So this is great if you want to just detonate all the poisons for one final blow to just speed things up. I think by the time she casts her ultimate, you've got like 7 to 12 stacks of poison on them, and to detonate them all is wonderful, especially if you have a high portrait Sotheby. The damage output is kind of insane, actually. And then the insides, so with Sotheby, I mean, you really should be inciting 3 all your characters at this point, but with Sotheby, you really should insight 3 her, because her insight 3 is what allows the cures to activate immediately before... Oh, okay, yeah. So Insight 3 is what allows you to trigger existing cure stacks when you cast your healing incantation. This is a little confusing wording, but that's essentially what it means. So if you want to heal right away with Sotheby, you need to cast her healing incantation twice, which is not as bad as one might think, just because when you do get to a point where you need to heal, it's about time to pretty much wrap up the match. You're just trying to top up your HP so you just don't die. So typically what I do will be to double heal to make sure the enemy doesn't kill me, and then do the finishing blow by like doing my attack incantations and casting my ultimate to detonate all the poison stacks. Okay, I really need to speed things up. So medicine pocket, I need to pick up my nephew. So medicine pocket, where are you? Oh my god, where are you? Oh, okay. Sorry, it's the sunglasses. So Medicine Pocket is a double S tier unit because he debuffs, increasing the damage taken by the enemy, and then he has good heals that apply sturdiness to all allies to absorb damage. He dazes the enemy as well as increases 1 moxie for him, and then when he casts his ultimate, tops up your HP. So just multiple ways to heal, increasing damage output, and dazing the enemy. Medicine Pocket does everything you want a healer to do and more. And then moving on to the 2 most broken units in the game. So Tooth Fairy is broken because she allows you to crit. It makes your entire team crit more by applying confusion, as well as with her baby tooth stacks. At the start of the round, consumes 5 baby teeth to reduce the enemy team's crit resist and crit defense by 15%. Lasts 2 rounds. And Tooth Fairy is one of the few units, who is the only unit actually, who is able to top off the HP of your party as well as increase the crit rate of your party without casting a single incantation. I've gone through entire battles where I didn't cast a single healing incantation with Tooth Fairy, and that is incredibly powerful. It's more than you can ask from a healer, just providing value noticeably just by existing. And then her Insight 3, when triggering Baby Teeth, all allies recover 10% missing HP, and then when entering battle gains an additional 2 Baby Teeth. So her Insight 3 makes it so you start off the battle with 5 Baby Teeth, which will automatically trigger the 15% defense shred and crit resist shred. And then whenever she debuffs, she also heals HP. It's insane. It's so insane, guys. Her debuff heals, her healing incantation heals, and her ultimate has increased crit rate. And when she crits with her ultimate, is able to purify status down, negative status, and control of all allies. That is just so broken. And then 6 is the other triple S tier unit because he has 6 different debuffs, broken debuffs, and 6 different buffs that she applies, plus she purifies 2 targets with his buff. And then his ultimate deals more damage depending on how many debuffs the enemy has. And I think there's other broken parts of his kit. He even heals. He's a support who can heal if you're lucky. Heals the ally with the lowest HP. And yeah, just such a flat out broken unit. Guys, I need to pick up my nephew. I would say more, but I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys for your support. I've gained so many subscribers in the past 3 days. I think like 100 subscribers in 3 days. It was something crazy like that. And I'm really eyeing, you know, like if I can reach like 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do something huge for you guys. And you guys, also the CM players out there who chime in and help me out, help me improve so that I can provide you guys with the best content I can possibly give you and the most accurate one I can. Thank you and have an amazing day. Take care, guys.